calling strangers, doing the cranks, pranks, and the things that's dangerous. Things that they live stream to entertain us. Friday night cranks and you can't contain us. This happens when everything you make's bangers. Hollow-headed decision, we are no-brainers. If you got a prank call, then just mail us. I promise if they don't pick up, we change voicemails in. Been going for years and still go hard. Got a cell phone flow service, got bars. And if you hear heat like this, he got charged. You try to build a team, we got ours. Please tell me why it's difficult or hard to hit the number one spot that we are. We can talk about your skill level, us subpar. Talk about where you're at, ain't much so far. Whoa, that's praise on the intro. That's Jared on the end of your cell phone. That's Stu Stone with a flow that was so cold. Had to name my first chain off the boat. Let me get him though. It's Friday night cranks in here. Friday night cranks in here. So if you on time when you hopping online, see me going all night and the best is clear. It's Friday night cranks. It's Friday night cranks in here. Friday night cranks in here. So if you on time when you hopping online, see me going all night. So the best is clear. It's Friday night cranks.
What's up, everyone? The weekend has arrived, so sit back, relax, and watch some prank calls live. You can watch from your TV, your laptop, or phone. If you're with a group of friends or just home alone, I'll call your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, sister, or brother. And if they hang up, I'll call right back and change my phone number. Clues go out every week, and if you crack the code, you can be the one that makes confetti cannons explode. Send in a request, I'll make the calls for free. And if it's good, I'll post it up for the world to see. There's always classic characters like Brandon, Barney, and Mitch, making prank calls all night at the flip of a switch. If it's a 3 or a 2 or a one-man show, you need a laugh Friday night, well, you know just where you can go. FridayNightCranks.com from 9 to 11, making you laugh every week since 2007.
It's Friday night cranks in here. Friday night cranks in here. So if you on time when you hopping online, see me going all night and the best is clear. It's Friday night cranks. It's Friday night cranks in here. Friday night cranks in here. So if you on time when you hopping online, see me going all night. So the best is clear. It's Friday night cranks.
Stu Stone, the last prank remaining. And if I'm on the call, it's Ralphie, it's a spank I'm gaining. Just a clap on the ass, a little smack on the cheek. Simple reminder, Friday night's my favorite day of the week. FNC fans, boys and girls around the world yell it. And use 3 Z's, that's how assholes spell it. Live coast to coast from New York to Cali. And our calls are dirtier than balls of bowling alley. We killing them, literally killing them beast mode. And hashtag George May he rest in peace though. Basements flooded, cannonball up the stairs. And don't ask stupid questions like is Barbara there. Got you feeling these calls like an Amazon wish list. We will never be on Walmart's Christmas gift list. It's Friday night cranks, baby, we the ish. We on a rooftop screaming out free to fish.
It's Friday night cranks in here. Friday night cranks in here. So if you on time when you hopping online, see me going all night and the best is clear. It's Friday night cranks. It's Friday night cranks in here. Friday night cranks in here. So if you on time when you hopping online, see me going all night. So the best is clear. It's Friday night cranks. Strangers doing the cranks, pranks, and the things that's dangerous. Things that they live stream to entertain us. Friday night cranks.
Guys, welcome to Live with Kyle and Alex. Tonight's show is gonna be very amazing. Alex, how's it going over there?
Pretty good. Tell me you did something exciting today. I did very little of nothing. Tell me you did
actually,
something.
I worked all day, so it's not really that
that's
exciting.
right. You have a job. When you're retired like me, you have nothing to do. You have to find things to do. But actually, I did go out looking for a couple of things. And that was kind of a headache, especially when you can't find it and you can only get it online. But I did finally find what I needed. Not everything, but I never found everything I needed. But I guess working is, well, you are at that age where you work. I'm at that old age where I don't have to work anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Bighorn fire is actually hitting the ground now.
Oh,
It's at ground level. They had to evacuate the entire foothills housing. So that's happening.
Oh. Now that I didn't know. But I walked out my door and yesterday morning, all that smoke was hitting me. I had to get my car washed and everything. But hey,
Yeah, it's
you
crazy.
gotta do what you gotta do.
Right.
So, oh, Kyle, who do we have today? I understand we have really somebody really cool. I am really interested. I got a question I gotta ask. I got quite a few, but I want to know
Yeah,
a few.
so a little bit of background of him. I've been a fan of this guy ever since he started Friday Night Cranks 13 years ago, February 12th of 2007. He changed the face of prank calls when he was like 15 years old. His co-host Kristen started a live prank call show called Friday Night Cranks that aired almost every Friday night for the past 18 years. The show has gained over 380,000 subscribers, 70 million views, and made over 2,500 calls.
Oh,
I'm so excited, so please welcome Mr. Jared McMulllin. Jared, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, Jay.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to meet you guys.
This is a pleasure. This is a pleasure. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of pranks. I mean, when I met Kyle introduced me to pranks. I'm, being 74 years old, my prank days are over, but the pranks are really cool.
Thank you.
I really like them now. I
Yeah.
really do. How did you get started
Oh boy.
making prank calls?
Yeah, like I said in the intro, I was 15 years old. My two cousins, Joe and Kristen. Joe was 13 and Kristen was 10. We discovered a website, this is back in 2007, where you could stream live to the world. So we looked at what other people on the website were doing, and they had a few radio shows, they had a few like interview shows, and we were like, okay, no one's doing pranks, so let's just sit on the couch. AT&T at the time, like you had to pay for minutes, but if it was after 9 p.m. on a Friday, you had the nights and weekend minutes. So I was like, we'll use my phone, we'll have the free minutes, and we'll do a prank call show. And it was really, that's just kind of how it all began.
While you're doing this show, me and my dad have been watching ever since you started, became a huge fan of it until you hit the last end of it. But did you get the cops called during any portion of the time?
Kind of. There were people where we called them maybe a little too much or things got a little crazy, that they'd call the cops, but cops never really they never show up to our house because of anything we did. The only times they showed up were when people were pretending to be us and making prank calls and saying, hey, I'm Jared, and they were not. So the FBI would get involved, or the cops, and they'd end up showing up at my parents' house. And thankfully, they knew of a website, FridayNightCranks.com, where they could see all the pranks we did. So they realized very quickly that we were not the ones doing it. So, but when we would actually do the calls and drive people crazy, the cops were never called, thankfully.
So people were pranking you by saying they were you.
Yeah, they were doing very illegal things and very dangerous and pretending they were me. And, honestly, I don't blame the cops for believing them, because when you Google Jared prank calls, I come right up. So it kind of made sense.
That means you're doing a good job. You're being imitated.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's the sincerest form of flattery.
Yes.
Come up with your characters on the show.
Yeah.
Barney, Mitch.
Oh boy. They kind of have their own unique story, but we would do these pranks that would sometimes require multiple characters or just different characters, and since we're over the phone, they couldn't see us, so we had to go very extreme with the voices and just make the voices sound believable. So I'm not very good at doing impressions or really changing my voice, so I would just go really high, which would be Brandon, and then just me attempting to do any sort of accent was Bonnie, and then me just using the lower register of my voice to just pretty much have a deep growling voice would be like Mitch, and that was just pretty much my range. So just the high, middle, and low, and then we also had me as the Jim character, and then Kristen's characters were just really just trying to find voices she could do for a long period of time, because these calls would go on 20, sometimes 30 minutes, and you just have to stay in character, and your voice hurts. So she figured out she could do an old lady, so one extreme, and over the phone it sounded very convincing. Then she did a 7-year-old girl, so that was also very convincing over the phone. And then she would also do kind of accent-y type of characters or two. She had a very preppy character, which went along great with pretty much anything we were doing. So we were just trying to make it so when the person was listening to us, we didn't have to explain our character. They could just hear it and just assume like, oh, I know exactly how this guy is.
What's your favorite call you did? Mine personally has been R.I.P. George.
Yes.
Because it just went out of nowhere.
Yes, and I'll maybe explain R.I.P. George in the longer context, because if you didn't watch it live and you just watched the YouTube clip, it looks a little crazy. And that's probably one of my favorites too, just because of how unexpected and rare it is. We did thousands and thousands of calls, and up until this point in the show, we're about 6 or 7 years in. Every person we've asked to speak to on the phone has been there. With this particular call, we thought it would be funny to call random people named George Washington and have the little girl character interview George Washington for her school project and ask questions that like made no sense, like what was his favorite iPhone, and just things like that hopefully the person on the line would just make up because it's for a 7-year-old, so he would just give crazy answers. So we called and asked a woman answer the phone, and she has to speak to George Washington, and she tells us that he can't come to the phone because he passed away. And we were like, oh, we've never called asking for somebody who was not there. So we hung up, and we kept calling places. They weren't answering. And then we finally got another woman and asked to speak to George, and then she explains that George has passed away. Totally different George. We tried another time after that, and same thing. So that's everybody's favorite, because throughout the call, you almost don't want anybody to be there because it's so absurd that these people not only are dead, but have been dead for a very long time, but we're calling them for some reason. So it was just a very crazy, over-the-top call, and it has never happened since then. After that night, every person we've called has always been there. So I don't know what was going on that night, but it was crazy, and we never got to actually do that call, which kind of sucks because it was a funny idea, but we just kind of gave up on that idea and never called another George Washington.
Wow. Hey, what about the James call?
Oh, James.
About the James call? That sounds interesting.
Yes, it's called The Prank Call Gone Wrong, and the reason why it went wrong, again, something we did not plan. A girl wanted us to prank call her ex-boyfriend, and she could not figure out why he broke up with her, so she thought he must like guys. So how about you call as your Brandon character, who's very flamboyant, and ask him out on a date, and then we'll say it's a joke, and then I'll have my little revenge against him. So I'm like, all right, that's like harmless. I'll ask him out on a date. Either he says yes, and like now it's not funny, and we just need to say your ex-girlfriend thought it was funny, or he says no, and it's kind of funny, and he thinks some random guy's calling his house phone, asking him on a date, and make the call. The mom answers, so I was like, all right, I'd like to speak to James. Then the mom somehow, during this confusion, thinks I'm James and wants to know where James is because he's not home and it's past curfew. So me, in a brilliant moment of confusion, say that I got high and I'm naked in the woods with my friends. And the mom nicely freaks out, as any mom would, and I kind of just hang up the phone, and that was it. And was very confused that this lady thought I was her son, who was missing, I guess, at the time.
Was naked in the
yeah, naked in the woods. He did some drugs, and that call, I think, is up to like 18 million views on YouTube. Like that's kind of the call that put us on the map. And it's funny. It's just even funny in the sense that like it was not planned. If you watch the call, I'm very confused, and I'm just like, what do we do? And yeah, everybody knows and everybody quotes it, so it's been a lot of fun. But every time I watch it, it always makes me laugh, and I still cringe at like how strange all of that was.
So now, after Kristen left the show,
Yes.
You met some new friends, Fizz and Sprinkles. How did you how'd that end up? Like, how'd you meet them?
Well, this was actually, I guess maybe like 6 or 7 months before Kristen left the show. I don't know what happened, but I was at a party, as all good stories start, had maybe a little too much to drink, came home, woke up, and had a note in my phone with a YouTube link, which was to Fizz and Sprinkle. So I guess I was just very drunk on the computer and somehow came across singing puppets and thought, I need to remember this in the morning. So I saved the link, sent it to myself, woke up and was very confused the next morning when I'm watching this. So I showed Kristen, I'm like, what the hell is this? Did you send this to me? And she's like, no. So that's kind of how all that started. And then we started promoting their videos. So then the people behind Fizz and Sprinkles messaged me and was like, hey, thanks so much for sharing our videos. And then we kind of just started talking, and they would text me as Fizz and Sprinkles, like in character. Like I didn't actually meet the people behind Fizz and Sprinkles until maybe about a year into just texting them to like, hey, it's Fizz. I'm like, hey, person. And, you know, they would talk about collabing and making videos. And, you know, I don't think of like, we're not going to meet up if I don't know who you guys are, because you guys are just puppets. So the people behind them were awesome. And that's kind of how all that kind of came about.
Yeah. Also, hey, why Friday? What made you come up with the name Friday Night Cranks?
Yeah, well, I was in 10th grade at the time. Kristen was in 5th grade. Joe was in 6th or 7th grade. So we were elementary school, middle school, and high school. And we would, me and my cousins would all like hang out a lot, but we'd all have school during the week. So we figured if we're going to do the show all year round, it needs to be on a day when we don't have school. So Fridays, we're kind of off from school. And then, you know, we got that way, like if my parents had anything planned or their parents had anything planned on Saturdays or Sundays, we wouldn't interrupt that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, with the free nights and weekends, I'm like, oh, well, we could make free calls without using all my mom's minutes at Friday starting at 9 o'clock. So as long as the show starts at 9 o'clock p.m. Friday night, let's get. Oh, and when we pitched the idea to our parents, they were like, okay, yeah, sure, you can, you know, do this for like 3 weeks and, you know, whatever, it'll be a fun little thing. And who cares? Yeah, you could do it. So I was like, cool. And then maybe about 4 months in, they're watching live and they're like, oh my God, we cannot like be allowing this in our house. And eventually over time they came around, and my dad kind of always thought it was awesome since the beginning. But when my mom's yelling at me, he has to pretend like it's not cool. So, but they both really enjoyed it.
Before I get on, well, not that's bad wording, but before I get on to our questions, I got some text messages in the loop here.
Sure.
How'd you get the phone numbers that you called on the show?
Oh yeah, so that was kind of, I guess, the reason why the show became successful, because I don't think I'm like that funny on my own. So what we decided to do was, because we didn't want to prank call all of our friends and family, we'd run out pretty quick. We decided when people were watching the show, they would send in ideas. So they would set people up. So you could be watching from home and say, hey, prank call my brother, and tell us what to say. So during the live show, kind of just how we're live now, we'd be live and you could be in the chat room and send a message to Joe, and Joe would make a Word document of like ideas that he thought were good, and he'd print them out, he'd give them to us, circle certain ones, and that's kind of how we got the numbers. So as the show got bigger, we got more people, we got more numbers, more ideas, and in our heyday, we were getting maybe 5,000 requests a week. So those were, I've read every single request that's ever come in.
Right.
What is so you made a book, and I don't think I'm on back order right now, but as it never came in. But during the show,
There it is.
you had 12.
Oh yes, yes.
You had 12 minus 6 cloud.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Oh, I would love to tell you what it means. And it's funny you mentioned the book, because I actually wrote the answer in the book, but as I mentioned earlier, I do very crazy things. Sometimes I don't know how many edits I went through with this book, at least 6, because there's so many different edits. It's sometime between edits like 4 and 5. That whole section is just gone, so I don't even know what happened to the answer. It's just gone. And I thought I found it the other day. Like I had this whole, I'm not even kidding, it's like at least 20 pages long, going in depth, and like all the ways people could have figured out the answer, and it's like gone. So I may have found it the other day on a backup hard drive, but maybe that'll be released soon. Who knows?
Right. So when everything ended, the prank calls ended and everything, what did you feel? How were you feeling when you said, for the last time, thank you and good night? How were you feeling? That must have been really.
It was very weird. Yeah, it was very weird because at the time I was doing it for 9.5, almost 10 years. And up until that point, we only missed like 8 shows. So we were very, that were like our fault that we like canceled way in advance. So I was doing it for a good portion of my life. So ending it was very bittersweet because I was happy to like have some free time to kind of do some other things, experiment on some new projects and ideas. But I was also kind of like, oh, I don't get to do this anymore. But kind of it was a good idea, at least for me, to end it while it was still fun and when everybody enjoyed it, instead of doing it when I was not having fun and everybody was like, oh, this was great 5 years ago, which people said, but it was still fun for me.
Wait, go ahead, Alex. I didn't want to.
No, I was just going to make a comment about what he said. I know when you're doing something that you love like that, and then it ends, it's really a feeling of, oh my goodness. So I understand that feeling.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. I understand that totally.
After the show, you kind of just ventured off, and you're working on something you said before, and you made a podcast called "I Hate Everyone." What happened to that?
Yeah, that kind of changed, and is now, I guess, my one of few current podcasts, which is just the Jared McMulllin podcast, because it's changed so many names over time. But I originally called it "I Hate Everyone," and it was just filled with a lot of rants and just kind of silly things. And then after a few years of doing it, I was just like, I was just getting so amped up all the time, and I was surrounded by some people and some situations that led to like some great funny stories. But I was like, this is just way too stressful to not only like live through these silly stories, but then also like retell them constantly. So I was like, if I change the name of the podcast, I could kind of expand it a little more instead of just being like rants and crazy stuff. So we kind of changed it, and that's what's been going on. So right now I'm just kind of taking a break from the comedy podcast. 2019 was kind of a year where I just didn't do anything, which was good. It was nice, and started to get back into everything now. So that's kind of where the podcast went. It's right now. It'll be coming back, just in a very different form, I guess.
With pranks and everything, and making everybody laugh, and with pranks, your pranks are just amazing. Would you consider yourself a comedian because you make everyone laugh?
Yeah, I guess so. Like if I had to narrow it down, and I guess the reason why I would say that also is because it's the pranks were great, but a lot of it was, I guess, long form improv theater, because we have characters, we have a situation, and it was all a lot of like very improv where you start off with one idea, it morphs into something else. Somebody watching says, "Hey, you should try this," and then we try it and it works, and now the whole. So I thought of it as like long form improv, and somebody's just on the phone listening and thinks it's real, which is why a lot of our calls got so crazy. So in the sense of it being long form improv, I consider myself a comedian that way. And then I also, put out some comedy music at one point and did a comedy podcast, wrote a comedy based book. So a lot of comedy in there.
So here's kind of a question that kind of gets a little iffy, but when Kristen left the show, there wasn't a real reason why.
Yeah.
Why did she leave the show?
Yeah, I guess the longer story. At the time, I didn't know. When everything happened, there was a lot kind of going on because we are cousins, we are family. Things happen. There's a lot going on that I knew about, but then also a lot of stuff I didn't know that was going on with her. And then same thing with me. There was a lot going on with me that she knew, then a lot that she didn't know. So things just kind of
clashed. We really weren't communicating correctly. So she went back to New York and needed some time to herself. And the way that was presented was not that. It was kind of more along the lines like, I don't want to do this anymore. So she kind of didn't explain that correctly. I didn't receive it correctly. So of course reacted terribly to that situation. And then it was just kind of a back and forth of just us like not talking. So we didn't speak or really talk until about a year ago. And then we actually met up in person a few months ago. One of our family members was having like some surgery. So I heard she was going to come down to Myrtle Beach to be there. So got to hang out, grab some dinner, kind of discussed all that, which made more sense, but a lot of it doesn't really need to be talked about. But we figured out where a lot of the misunderstanding came from, and like now we're good. So very weird. So for a long time, I had no idea what happened, but yeah, just a lot of just family stuff, pretty much.
No worries.
As long as you're good now, that's what matters, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
A couple texts are coming in as well. Did you make a lot of money doing the Friday Night Prank show?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess in today YouTube standards, I would say probably not. But at the time, yeah, I mean, it's how like I made a living for most of that. I was working at a library when we started the show, and then a few years after that, I was a senior in high school. I didn't need a job. I was just doing the show. So back then, there was really no blueprint to make money online or doing a live show. So we were trying to figure out merchandise and AdSense revenue and sponsorships and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun to navigate. But yeah, and then even nowadays, like a lot of the stuff I do is digital based, whether it be consulting, marketing, or whatever. So I make money, I guess, still off of Friday Night Pranks in just different ways.
And then were your parents surprised at the success of FNC?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense of like it's crazy, but for a while it just seemed like numbers. Like we're looking at a screen, we're talking to a webcam, and it says there are people watching, and people say they're watching, and this is funny, but we don't actually get to see any of them. So then, as the numbers were going up, they were just kind of numbers like, oh, 1 million people watched, like cool. But it didn't really start to sink into me, and I guess even my parents and everybody, until we went to VidCon. And people were coming up to us. I'm like, oh my God, I love Friday Night Pranks. Like, look, I bought a shirt. And I'm like, oh yeah, we mailed that. And like, you have it. So it was our first, because up until that point, I was the only one that I saw wearing a Friday Night Prank shirt, or I would see Kristen sometimes wearing a Friday Night Prank shirt. So it was stuff like that, then people going up to my parents like, oh my God, you're the mom that is always yelling at them during the show. And like, weird. Yeah, got your shirt. So that's when it was really like sinking in. So I guess as it was getting bigger, we were all getting more surprised. But after a while, it was just like kind of how numbers were just numbers. It was just like another thing that would happen. People coming up to us or sending something to us or pretending to be us.
So what do you think is your craziest in-person prank?
Yeah, I guess the craziest ones were ones we didn't get a chance to shoot because they were too crazy. But my favorite in terms of the craziness is the laptop repair prank where we flew to Arizona, where one of my best friends lives. Her name is Charlie, and she is a maniac. She thought it'd be funny to set up her roommate, and I was going to pretend to be tech support for her laptop and go to fix her laptop in person and then destroy it. Except when we called, and we said that there was a recall on her computer, and we needed to send a technician to fix it. She said, no, I don't want a technician to come fix it, but we already had our flights booked, so we were going to come fix it. So I found her exact laptop on eBay, make and model, and then we swapped it out when she wasn't home. What Charlie did not mention to me was that this woman is, she's not tall, but she could just beat the crap out of me in 2 seconds. And she like rides a motorcycle without pads. She has a big helmet that she wears though. So she walks in holding this bike helmet, and I'm like, oh no, like this is not gonna go how I think it's gonna go. So I had a saw and a hammer under the couch because I was gonna try and saw the laptop. And I'm like, if this woman wrestles a saw or a hammer from me, like she's gonna kill me before the word prank can even leave my mouth. So I was very scared, but I went through with breaking her laptop. I snapped it over my knee, and she tried to mace me at one point, but she was out of mace, which was good, yeah, good for me. But also, how many situations have you been in that you've maced people? So, like we should get that fixed. But she was out of mace, and then also Charlie told me after the fact, like there was a loaded gun in the house. So I was like, oh, you should have mentioned that this girl could just beat me up. Rides a motorcycle, and does not fear anything, is going to try and mace me, but then also has a gun. And I'm just like trying to make a silly video for YouTube. So that was one that got like, it was crazy, but I didn't know how crazy it was in the moment. But yeah. And then we've had kind of even crazier ideas that we did not get to shoot, but maybe we will. Who knows?
Goodbye. I think the gun in the house could have gotten really crazy.
Yeah, because she could have told us, she could have said in the beginning, hey, there's a loaded gun in the house, because I'd be like, cool, let's move it, put it like out of the house, so she doesn't go to grab it, because if I was her, I probably would try and shoot me. Like, just go into somebody's house and take a saw to their laptop. Like, you can't do that.
Welcome to Live with Kyle and Alex.
Yes, indeed.
Since you have a couple.
Hey, what's up? Can I talk to Jared?
Studio right now.
Sure.
I don't think he did yet.
Hang on one second here.
Until we figure this problem out. But you wrote a book, Prankaholic.
Yes.
And it's the first interactive book, basically, in the world, correct?
I believe so. I couldn't find an interactive book. And the way that works is you go to our website as you're reading the book, and there's like little footnotes as you're reading. So it'll say like, we shot a video called The Prank Call Gone Wrong, and there'll be like number 43. So then you go to the website, click on number 43, and then you can watch the video. So when I'm talking about like a contract that we signed or a video, you can just go and see it instead of me spending 3 pages describing it. Instead of saying it was so funny, you can just go and watch it. So that was a lot of fun, just putting together. Very stressful to do, but I think it just added a lot of fun to the book.
Okay.
That is amazing.
Hey, Alex, I'm going to pause you right there. We have a caller on the line.
Okay.
Eric, you want to bring them in?
Caller, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, caller.
Oh.
Hey, what's up? Jared,
Hello.
I missed Friday Night Crank.
Oh, thank you. Me too.
Why did you stop doing it? You should do it alone or something.
Well, like I said earlier, it was at a point where it was starting not to be fun. But I think the cool thing is we have like a lot of videos on YouTube that I go back and watch sometimes. But I'm working on some new stuff, some new videos that involve some pranks. So we'll be seeing those soon. So don't worry if you missed the characters and stuff. Like you'll see a lot of that soon. A lot of some new stuff.
That's.
Well, so
Do you remember the pizzas that someone sent you last year?
Did they what?
Do you remember the pizza somebody sent you last year?
Oh, that happens. Like, I don't even know how many times people have sent us pizzas. I think before we even moved from New York to Myrtle Beach, it was like a weekly occurrence at my friggin' poor parents' house. We're just sitting there. But yeah, I would say it happens maybe like once or twice a year. But hey, it's pizza.
Are you really gay?
I'm actually married with a wife, but thank you. Sorry if that disappoints you. I know sometimes that disappoints people when they find out that Brandon is a character.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, thank you.
yes, absolutely.
What made you decide to turn your book into an interactive book?
I think it was because I've never written a book before until at that point. So I was like, we have so many silly stories and so many crazy things that have happened. I was sitting there watching the video, trying to explain the video. So I was like, can't we just show the video instead of me explaining it? Because like, it's just a lot of explaining. Especially with like some of the prank calls, you can't really explain the awkwardness or some of the how absurd some of it got. So I was like, if I just somehow put little links in the video, so I was thinking of maybe doing QR codes, but I was like, that's just too annoying to have a big code in there. So I was like, I guess I'll just have to build a website with pictures and video, and you kind of match the numbers like a second grade computer game, and then you get to unlock some stuff. I kind of got the idea from like those choose your own adventure books where it's like, if you want to do this, go to this page, or if you want to jump across the lake instead of swim, go to page 50. So I was like, if you do that for
Hello, welcome to Live with Kyle and Alex.
leading to pages, it leads to pictures and stuff. So that's kind of how it all came together. So I had to write the
Hang
book,
on
and
while
then
we
rewrite the book and match
get you in there.
the content to whatever I was talking about.
That sounds pretty tedious.
Yeah, but it was fun.
Yeah,
It sounds like it.
really
Hey,
good.
I was going to pause you right there once again. We have another call.
Yes, please.
Caller, are you there?
Yeah, hello?
Hello?
Fuck you, bitch. Go fuck yourself, you fucking cunt, bitch. Look at the...
Excuse me. Goodbye. Sorry about that.
That was a little rude. I like the voice changer though. That was.
Where did the Prankaholic name come from?
I was gonna call the book something else. I can't remember what it was originally called. But I just thought it was a cool way, because whenever I would describe, when people would ask like, "Why are you doing the pranks? Why are you doing it?" I'm like, I just can't not mess with
Howdy,
people.
welcome to Live with Kyle and Alex.
So I guess like that was kind of my, because when people would say like, "Oh, you didn't
Hang on a minute, you ready to
you
go
didn't-
online?
You didn't do this or that. You didn't go. Well, I did go to prom,
Just a
but
minute.
like, you know, like you didn't go to parties. You didn't do this. So like, what was your thing?" I was like, well, I was kind of like addicted to making prank calls for 2 hours a week. So that's kind of where that came from. And once I thought of it, I was like, well, I don't have to use it. Nobody else has used it, so I kind of have to use it because eventually everyone will use all of the titles ever. So.
Now, what made you come up with the photo on the cover rather than the serious one on the back?
Yeah, because I know when people think of the show, it's like it's supposed to be funny and it's not serious. Like I try not to take myself too seriously, so I bought like this old rotary phone and I had to go to like a professional like photo studio to do a photo shoot, which I was like very uncomfortable doing. I did not like doing. And the lady was like so helpful. She was like, "No, how about you try this, try that?" And thankfully, my wife was there and she was like, you know, like you do characters, so like do some characters, and we were kind of going back and forth. So I was like, all right, maybe the photo could be like me, kind of like how you imagine like teenage girls sitting on the phones talking to their friends. Like I could be doing that. But
Caller,
just,
are you
like,
still there?
like just very silly. And then you know, every book I guess has a picture of the author, and I took just that silly one.
Hang on a minute,
and then
please.
a bunch of other silly ones that I didn't like. So I was like, so I guess the other picture has to be serious. Because I ran out of funny pictures pretty quickly.
Okay, we have another call on the line. Hopefully it's not. Probably not. Hopefully not staying.
Hopefully it's a
Eric, you wanna
decent
break
call.
down and just see what happens, please?
Yeah, why not?
Caller?
Yeah, hello? Hey, what's going on?
Hi, who are you?
Sounds like the Michael Jackson soundboard.
Yeah, hello?
Hi.
I like I think it's safe to say a lot of people just like to prank call Friday. It's that time.
They're prank calling you because you prank call, I guess.
Exactly. So I apologize for bringing that on to you guys.
You are good. That's the whole point of the show, right?
People are imitating you. It's great.
Exactly. They heard us talking about it and they decided to keep it going.
Best form of flattery, you know? Yes.
Okay, so you, after the show, you made a web show called Late Night Web Show.
Yes.
And where'd that come about? Or how did that come about?
Yeah, the original concept was I just didn't like how you have all these late night shows. You have Fallon, Kimmel, I guess even the daytime shows like Ellen and Oprah and whatever. You have all these shows where they're supposed to be talk shows. They can interview people, but you have to be like famous. You have to like be a known person. You have to give them a reason for you to be on the show. So I was like, how come there can't be a show where just like anybody can come on? Like you could just be in the audience, we pull you up, and now you're part of the show. And that was just kind of the original concept of it, where it's just a late night show anybody could be on, and I figured like I might as well host it because just finding a host that would want to do something like this is a little crazy, so I'll host it. And I started working on that, and that's kind of how all that all started.
It didn't last that long, is that correct? I mean, why was
Yeah, it lasted about maybe I guess a year and a half total, but we only did maybe like 16, 17 shows. And there were a few reasons for that. The first was I had to rent like a studio building to put like the set in and the equipment in a room, and that was very, very expensive. So then you had to pay a production crew and everything with that. So then I started renting this building out to other acts. So we had a hypnosis show, a magic show, a game show, all going on, and a late night show, all coming out of this like entertainment building. So that was pretty cool, but it was very expensive and it was just a lot of work. So when you go to put on a live show like this, I was used to just kind of flying solo, where I just need me and a computer. This we needed me, 2 computers, 3 camera operators, a sound guy, a lighting guy, guests, writers. You need like a whole team of people to do this, and it just was not, unfortunately, on the scale we were trying to do, it was not maintainable without some sort of like big sponsor or investment, and I just couldn't find a good fit. So I was just like, you know what, we kind of did what we wanted to do, and we'll just kind of pull back, and that might be something that comes back in the future in some way, so we'll see. I just like doing stuff live and at night, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I do too, and this whole, I just started my own promoter company here in Tucson, and doing live entertainment, and after this virus hit, it kind of just all came crashing down.
Yeah, live is amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. I love it, and I also love that it's been around for so long, but people still don't really see the full potential behind it. So I'm hoping it's getting there. But for many years, people are like, "What do you mean you go live? Like, what is that?" I'm like, "We stream live, So like, if you're on your phone, and they're like, "What do you mean to watch on your phone?" Like that's, I just feel like we've been doing it for that long. But yeah.
What is next for you now? Since if you're
Yeah. So projects that you guys will see. Well, I guess what I've been up to in between all of this is I am a consultant for a few different companies for digital media. So I do everything from like helping with social media posts, editing video, helping shoot video, pretty much giving them ideas for stuff, things like that. And then I've been doing a lot of that, and then like guest speaking at different events. So the University of Tennessee, I've been there a few times, and we'll actually be doing a Zoom speaking, which should be fun, next Tuesday. So I've been doing that, and then what's next publicly is a fun project that I cannot say, but all I'll say is it's going to be shot in Arizona. So you said you're in Tucson. I don't know how far you are.
located in Arizona.
I'm not sure yet. We know a few people in the Phoenix area, so we're probably going to be that, because we need a group of people. So we figured we'll go where, not where we know the most people, but where we could get a lot of people that will like not say anything, that can like keep a secret.
Where there's more people.
Exactly. So we'll be doing that. That'll probably be shot in the next 6 months, and it'll probably be out hopefully either before the end of the year or early next year. And I'm going to need everybody's help, and I can't say why, but once you watch it, you'll know what I need you to do, and then you should go do it.
Do it.
Yeah, like help out. Like hopefully you'll get it. You're like, oh, he's saying he's doing this, but he's really trying to do this, so I'm going to go help with this. So that's really all I can say. I know it's very vague and very strange, but it's going to be fun.
But Pranks are still gonna be. You're still gonna be doing pranks.
Yes. It is. Like I said, it is kind of a prank, but not really. It's not a prank. The way it's gonna be, the way I'm gonna do it is not a prank, but the way everybody, when I say they watch it and do something with it, they will make it become a prank. Yes.
I was kind of worried that pranks may be set to the side.
No, not really. In its form that people know of it, like me sitting doing prank calls, like I used to. That's kind of done. But even the late night web show, when we were doing the late night show, that was turning into like a prank-based show. All of our ideas, maybe not live, but when we were writing, we were like, oh, half of these ideas are pranks. So I was like, I'm just gonna keep doing what I think is funny and what I think is a prank, and maybe everybody else will join along.
You had over, what was it, 70 million views? Really?
Yeah, and that's I would say that's just on YouTube, and that's not counting our like live stream stats or podcast downloads. So when I did the final tally towards the final show, all the numbers were adding up to like 125 million-ish, which to me is bananas. Like, just that's way too many people listening to the stuff coming out of my mouth.
What advice would you give someone starting a web-based entertainment such as Friday Night Cranks or this show?
Yeah, I would say I guess just be yourself. I think the cool thing now is that there are lots of other creators out there also looking for exposure. So doing stuff like this where you're having people come on and help you build your audience and things like that. But yeah, just be you. Anytime, even though we were technically not us during the calls, we were different characters, but the in-between stuff, I think how we really connected with the audience, we were just ourselves, we were just being silly, and don't listen to people being mean, I guess, because there were lots of people being mean right off the bat. So after a while, you just kind of get used to it. And I would always say to people, even if everybody's yelling at me, like, people are watching, so like we have an audience, so they could be saying good things or bad things, and if they're saying bad things, we can try and make them laugh, and if they're saying good things, they won't say anything bad. So that's all the advice.
And I think we also got to say, before, I know I would forget, Kyle probably wouldn't forget, and I don't know if you'd let me forget, but I remembered, and I want to say, the book is Prankaholic, and it's on Amazon. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can purchase it on Amazon.
Yeah, Prankaholic by Jared McMulllin on Amazon. Had to put
Yes.
it in.
Sorry, there's a bunch of people trying to reach in the studio here.
Okay. Popular man there, Jared. I love it.
Oh my god, it's just coming in.
Great.
Anything else for Jared, Alex?
Oh, okay. Oh, so I thought you don't have anything coming in there?
Well, I'm waiting on Eric, see if anything's coming in. Usually,
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, okay. So while you waiting on that, what about? I understand you had was that what prank was that? A Pizza Hut prank? Let me just
Sure, that sounds
hold that in
just
there
like-
for a minute.
Press 1.
Sure. I mean, that is I feel like that's almost a trick question because there's like maybe 10 different pizza.
Oh, okay. I guess there would be. Yeah. So there's more than. Okay.
Yeah, but I can just my at least top 3 favorite pizza
there you
pranks
go.
would be the one I called. I think it was maybe a Domino's or something, and kept asking for Jared, and the guy was like yelling like he's not here, so we were calling as all of our different characters asking for Jared. And once the guy lost his mind, I called at the end of the night and said, "Hey, it's Jared. Like, do I have any messages?" And he was just like so angry.
Yeah, Kyle, this is
And
not going to work because I can't
it was
hear
such a
them,
silly
and I'm getting a whole bunch of
And then
spam
I also
calls.
called a Pizza Hut pretending that I didn't know what pineapple was, and kept saying peanut bowl and having the lady explain what pineapple was, and
Also, and I heard one about a Walmart lockdown with a baby.
yes, he had it. Yes, add in the baby part. So the God, is what seemed to be a very simple idea was to call a Walmart and say we left our child in the store, which, as I'm older now, I realize is a terrible idea. But being 15, 16 at the time, like, this is going to be funny. They're going to like think there's a lost kid, and they did. So they thought a baby was missing. I was very terrible at describing this baby. I said she was in a picnic basket and left her in the store. So they shut the doors to the store, called the police, told everybody inside nobody's leaving until we find this baby. And that was bad, but it's funny. And now, especially nowadays, you could never pull something like that off. So
not today. But back then, it was a prank that wouldn't get you in trouble, but now it would be.
That'd be pretty crazy.
Yeah, that would be insane. You know. So Kyle, how you doing over there? You over there? You got anything going on over here?
Give me 1 second. Okay. I don't. Okay. Actually, I have one other question to ask you. Do you still have a lot of fans from Friday Night Cranks that are still following you? Like, is there people still reaching out?
I guess so. Yeah. I get tweets here and there. Like I haven't really posted that much. Really of anything, but people are still watching videos on YouTube, and so it's pretty crazy. Like we're still getting new subscribers on stuff, which is very strange. But I think people still watch and laugh and like it, which I guess is good. It's better than everybody looking back on it and going, I used to watch this.
All right, cool. Alex, anything else before we close out the show tonight?
Hey, I just want to say thank you for making me laugh, and thank you for your pranks. And like I said, I haven't been a prank man for a while, but Kyle introduced me to pranks, and then now you made me really wanna prank.
Yes.
And I definitely gotta get you. I have to get Prankaholic.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, mine's on back order right now. So I was gonna have it today, show it on the show, but that's not. Right. Cool. Well, if you're in Arizona, you should hit us up. We'll help out if you need it.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I'll let you guys know as soon as I have some dates. Once they say that we can make some large groups.
I know.
All right.
So far, it's not really having as a spike in other countries virus, so it's kind of
absolutely. Extraordinarily, thank you, Jerry. Thank you, man.
And thank you guys.
Yeah, you're a joy, man.
Before you leave, Jared, can you stay on
sure.
the show for a little while? Just do the closing assignment so it doesn't mess up the whole.
Of course. Yeah,
absolutely.
What is it? Monday night. We have a brand new Tucson local here. She does movies, horror films. She's a house manager for the Fox Tucson Theater. Tamora Mack will be joining us on Monday night. So tune in live with Cal and Alex. We'll be live at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Pacific Standard Time, and 7 o'clock on Periscope, Twitch. Thanks everybody, and good night.
And absolutely, before we go, I definitely want to give a shout out and ask people to support the Pistoleros at the Trail Dust Town. It would be a shame if the Wild West Stunt Show if they couldn't keep going. And that you can support them on, I think it's Facebook. Kyle, do you have that address for
I don't. If you go to, I think it's Pistoleros Wild.
Yeah, Pistoleros Wild West. So support them, and we can't lose that. It's quite a show. And what happened with me on the 6th, I actually donated, and I didn't look at my statement, and it never showed up on my bill. So I'm saying, what had happened? So I did something wrong, and it didn't get to donate. So I actually had to go back today and put up my donation, and it went through this time because I did something wrong. But I do want to give a shout out to Trail Dust Town's Wild West show, the Pistoleros, Jerry Woods and Heather and Noah and Tim and everybody. Just support them. We can't lose them. They are really doing a great job. Been around for 23 years, and it would be a shame to lose. Wild West Stunt Show, Pistoleros Wild West Stunt Show. I think you do it on YouTube and everything. Look them up. Okay, had to throw that in, man. Great bunch of people.
Awesome. Thank you. Good night, everybody, and see you Monday.
Hey, good night, everybody. Thanks a lot.